Afternoon, everyone. Now, I'm here to talk about a storyline in the Sonic the Hedgehog comic books that a lot of people have talked about over the past couple of years, ever since it was created. And that storyline I want to talk about is a storyline that's going to be making a comeback in the summer of this year in a four-part series as part of the Sonic Universe comic strip, or comic book, I should say. And this storyline is known as Mobius 25 years later. Now, a lot of people have criticized Mobius 25 years later because they don't know exactly what it's about, why it's even around. Some people hate it because they're not sure exactly what it's talking about or what it means. Well, there are a lot of different theories as to what Mobius 25 years later means, or as it's being now called for the summer of this year, Mobius 30 years later. Basically, what this is, according to many fans, is an alternate timeline. Basically, it depicts what will happen in the near future. Now, this story was originally written, I should say, by Ken Penders. I don't know why Ken came up with this idea, but I think maybe because he along with everybody else, including the fans, wanted to kind of see what it would be like after the war. Because let's not forget, in the In Your Face special of Sonic the Hedgehog, which is the very first 48-page special the comic book series had, at the end of that story, which was featured in there, in the feature story, we have almost a glimpse into the future. The war is over, Sally is married to Sonic, Bunny's de-roboticized, Tail, the whole thing. And then we get another glimpse of it in the Sonic Super Special, Sonic Girls Rules, with Princess Sally entering the pool of acorns, basically trying to see if she's ready to take on that mantle of being the future queen. And we get a glimpse there. So, technically, those, I believe, were the ideas that inspired Ken Penders to create Mobius 25 years later. Now, as far as Mobius 25 years later goes, for those of you that are new to the comic book and don't know what it means, or don't know what it's about, I suggest you go to Archie Comics or to Mile High Comics and you look for those issues. I can't really recall what issues they are, but when I can, I will. I think they're in the 100s, maybe the 80s, 100s issues, something like that. I can't really remember when Ken did it. And recently in the 140s, 130s issues when Ian took over. But anyway, when Ken Penders created Mobius, like I said, created Mobius 25 years later, it was to look at what could be. Now, some people have argued the fact that Mobius 25 years later is not canon. That it's an alternate timeline, that it's a possibility. That is true, it is a possibility, but things can change. For example, in the original Mobius 25 years later, written by Ken Penders, some characters, like say Locke, Knuckles' dad, is alive. But as we've seen with Ian Flynn taking over, Knuckles' father Locke is now dead. Or is he? I'm not really sure. But anyway, getting back to what I'm saying, Mobius 25 years later, to many, may seem like it's just an ongoing talking soap opera. No action whatsoever, nothing. It's just talk of, hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm doing cool, just between the characters. It's nothing else. Well, as far as it being canon, I believe it is. And as far as that talking goes that I was mentioning, the reason there's not much action is because it's basically showing what it would be like without Robotnik, without a villain to face. With Freedom 1, able to live their lives without having to worry about when the next villain's coming. Anyway, that is what Mobius 25 years later is all about. And true, it did introduce some new characters. It did surprise a lot of fans when they introduced those characters. For example, Sonic and Sally, in Mobius 25 years later, are married. And yes, Sonic and Sally have kids. The names of Sonia and Manic. Now I know this names sound familiar because they're exactly almost the same names or the exact same names of the characters in Sonic Underground. Now, now, another character that was introduced in the series was Lara-Su. Now Lara-Su, believe it or not, is the daughter of Knuckles and Julie-Su. That is right. You heard me right. Knuckles and Julie-Su, who are not officially married, but there's kind of like a soul, kind of torch soul thing with them that makes them married, if you will. Anyway, other characters have appeared in this series as well. Characters like Tails, characters like Rotor, Lena Da, Dimitri, believe it or not, is in the series. Dimitri has, and Lena Da has a son called Rundar, I think. I think that's what his name is. I'm not really sure. And Vector's in it. He has a son. You get the idea. SBO has a son, has a daughter. SBO has a daughter, believe it or not. And there's some other characters as well that's introduced throughout the series. Now, when Ken wrote this series, the main focal point in his version was the fact that the planet was in danger of imploding. And that the reason for this happening was because Sonic, according to the Brotherhood, had basically crossed dimensions so many times that it basically caused the entire zone, the world, to go into deflux. In other words, basically what Sonic had done in the past was damaging the whole deal. It caused the whole entire world to come crashing down. Now the only way this could be fixed is for someone to go back in time and fix it. Unfortunately, no one's ever been able to go back in time. But Sonic tries it, and ultimately what happens is this opens a window to something else. What happens is Sonic basically disappears. It's like he just vanishes off the face of the earth. And what this causes, like I said, is an opening. An opening to an alternate version of this timeline. And that's where the sequel comes in. A sequel written by Ian Flynn. A sequel that explains how things came to be. And explains how one certain black hedgehog came into power. And I will explain that in part 2, as I talk about Mobius 25 years later, the sequel written by Ian Flynn.